Hey guys, welcome back to Ash Echoes. In today's video, I wanted to go over the updated tier list for global now that we've got Scarlet and Bailey added into it. I'm going to focus more on the Scarlet side of things and also the fact of tier lists and also looking at what teams you're building, because low tier units are often paired with the top tier units to actually make them function. So I want to talk about that as well and just a general look at it, recap on the tier list, where we're at in the game and stuff like that. So first of all, let's talk about S tier over here on global, and maybe I'll get Lyriel from Pridewin on to talk about the CN server tier list. Let me know if that's something you guys want to see, and talk about future characters, because I don't actively play the CN server, so I don't have the full deep knowledge on that, but I'm sure she does. So let me know if that is something you would like me to see, and I'll see if she is available for it. But let's go through the current state of the game. So the first two I want to mention is Freda and Laurel. I think these are just the two most universal strong units you can have. Now, Laurel obviously does have the corrosion team, which is going to be like really prime for her, but I think she is just so good in any team due to that ability to absorb damage for her allies. Corrosion, she can still do corrosion damage by herself, even though it doesn't synergize with, you know, the traces and stuff that you'll be taking for other teams. In general, just an amazing all-round tank absorbing damage for your allies, especially when we've got bosses at the moment that, you know, have damage that's hard to mitigate, like the reflect damage. She can just absorb damage to help your allies not take a full brunt of all the damage coming, so they can help survive. And Freda, obviously, Freda's just so... like, Freda's just ridiculous. Like, I think everyone by now should have her if you got her from your selector as well. You know, you can just put her in heal mode. Just make sure you're safe. Then you get to a burst window. You just put her in buff mode. Then when her ultimate's up, if you're in a pinch and you're dying, make sure you're in healing mode before you use it. If you're going for massive burst, just use her ult when you're in buff mode, and it's just GG. She is amazing. She's absolutely crazy. So those two, the first two units I wanted to mention, because they're just universally just amazing. Now, Long Qing, I don't know how to say her name, but once again, I think the current state of the game, like, even though she's the best healer in the game, like raw, like healing output, I don't think she's too well needed at the moment. She does have offensive capabilities as well, but I don't think it's quite as good as Freda. I think as the game gets harder and we get more content we're gonna struggle with, then she will get more value. But at the moment, you guys let me know if I'm biased on this, just because I have kind of the two meta teams, even though I'm free to play. Like, the game gives us a ton of summons at the start of the game. It's ridiculous. I just haven't seen a place where I need that much sustain yet. I just haven't felt the need. So even though she's the best, like, I don't see many people just splashing her into all their teams, because you have Freda, who can be a more offensive option and still fill that role. And then, like I said, you can put Laurel in there as a tank to help you survive, but also have good offensive pressure with her. So that is that one. Hongxi, I don't know how to say his name again, dude. I suck at names, I apologize. But she is really nice. I did pull her. I tried her without any investment. I've used support versions of her as well. I do really like the way she functions, the way she works. Now, she is more... she's the best general tank besides Laurel, but Laurel's kind of a bit different. But if you look at raw tankiness value, definitely. But obviously, she's going to shine in that pure fire team, which will get even better once we get Bailey in here. So that is when the fire team is going to shine. I'm not going to touch too much on that with Bailey, because I'll wait until he's actually coming out and we'll go deep into him. But just note, the fire team is going to get a massive buff when we get him into the game as well. So that covers those ones. As for the DPS, so the thing is, I still think the two best teams are the Wind team and the Summoner team, the physical team. I just think they just shine far and beyond. People have been asking me which one's better because I have them both built. It's honestly hard to say because, like I said, the game hasn't had a massive challenge yet, and we haven't had those endless type bosses where we're trying to deal as much damage as we can. Once those come out, then we'll have better rankings for these teams. But at the moment, I think they're both fantastic, and I do think the Fire team works really well, even at base right now. But plus you still have the explosion, you have the ice, the freeze teams. Like, there's a lot of options for teams that will get you through what you need to do at the moment. But I think Chen and Luke, these two just make up an amazing team. I think that the physical Summoner team is probably the easiest team to play. Now, that might be biased because I've been playing it for so long, but when I compare it to the Scarlet team, I feel like the Scarlet team has more high-end potential. but you've got to be a bit more careful when playing it. Whereas especially if you're playing it the YOLO method with no tank. Now the Chen and Luke team, it's pretty easy. You just put your tank, whoever it is, in line to tank, you just sit back and then you just throw a bunch of summons out and then it's just GG's. Whereas the Win team, you're normally running a melee unit. If we take a look at Azusa, you've got Scarlet who does need to go around a bit. You got to time Scarlet using her single target attack so that she can pseudo tank and stuff like that. It's a bit more finicky, but really, really high damage ceiling. So that's the way I feel about the two teams at the moment. I think the physical team is the easiest to play. The Win team is probably the strongest at the moment, but it's a bit harder to play. That's the way I would put it. The Fire team is just, honestly, I feel like it's just really solid in general in the play method. Even if you're not running the full Fire team, just Cyrus in general, he just feels really good. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. It's because he can jump to anywhere, just clap the enemies, and then move back. Got the big fire zone, whether you're pairing that with explosion, whether you're pairing that with, Sembeka to get damage mitigation if you're a more free-to-play budget-type player. I just think he has so many options, and once again, he will get better with the pure fire team as we move forward. The one thing with Scarlet that I want to mention is if we take a look at the core physical team, which is like Chen, Luke, Laurel, and Freda, you can see they're all in the S tier. When we look at Scarlet, Scarlet is normally played alongside Freda, so Freda's going to be the support, but then you can play her with the Rel, or you're playing her with things like Azusa, Begonia. Well, Azusa's basically staple in that team, but then you're looking at things like Begonia or Felicio for that other option if you're running it without the tank, the Laurel tank. And that's where I wanted to highlight that even though some of these units are in the lower tiers, like Begonia, like Azusa, I would honestly have to put Azusa up personally to at least A, because if the Win team is one of the best teams at the moment, and you got Scarlet in the S tier showing that, at the moment, Azusa is like a must pair with that team. So you can't get her to being the best damage dealer in the game without having a team which is going to have to consist of Azusa normally. So that's why I think she should actually come up one tier now that Scarlet is in the game. I get why she was in B tier for the global launch, but now that we do have Scarlet, I do think that maybe she could squeeze up because she is a core part to that team. I would argue Begonia could also come up because Begonia does have a few teams that she works well in, but that one I'm not as stressed on because they do have Felicio up here. I honestly prefer Begonia over Felicio just on paper as a team for the Scarlet, but that's just me personally. It is a bit more scuffed because you are running an ice unit instead of the wind unit, but I still think it is quite good. As we move on to the other things, Hassel. Dude, I still love this guy. I really want to get him on this account. I played him heavily in the beta, and the ghost arm is just fantastic, and his burst potential is ridiculous. But yeah, I don't have him at the moment. Ivana for the ice team is really, really solid. Lydia, just a really solid free-to-play option for whether you want to go the electro teams or the explosion teams. Really, really fantastic in general. I've heard a few people have some good things to say about Tong. Unfortunately, I don't have him. Here's one that I'm going to be honest, I just don't know too much about, so I'm not going to mention too much on Tong. Sembeka, obviously free-to-play value. We all got a free copy of her. She's fantastic. You got the zones, you got the pushbacks, you got everything you need in a unit. She's absolutely fantastic. Deals 3 types of damage, really good. Fury and Fernie, once again, water zones, I'm not too familiar on these two. I haven't played them too much. Felicio mainly there as the attack speed type, buffing type unit. So, once again, I prefer Begonia, probably because she has a pet bird, and I just find that to be really, really cool. But hey, maybe that's just a bit of bias. And then Azura as a healer. Once again, I don't think raw healing is the most necessary thing in the game at the moment, and that is where we are looking at. Now, Caroline, once again, really good unit when we take a look at using her in the corrosion team. Sorry, I think it's a him. It's a dude, isn't it? Dude, I can't even remember anymore. But yeah, really good unit when paired in the corrosion team. I also really do like Gina in the corrosion team as well. Both pretty cool units to use in corrosion, along with the Laurel. So perfectly fine. But once again, this just comes down to what team are you building, and then some of these lower tier units are often going to be those functional pieces in some of the good teams that you can go ahead and build. But I'm not going to go too deep into everyone here. Read bit niche in case you don't have other units, but I wouldn't be worrying about fire unless you have Cyrus anyway. And if you have Cyrus, you're probably looking for a lower tier tank, which you're going to use Infa on anyway, unless you already have Hongxi, and then you're probably going to use Freda, and then you can pick your pieces for whatever. But we will have Bailey coming anyway in the not too distant future to go ahead and make use of that. But yeah, that pretty much covers everything I wanted to look at. Mars I haven't tested yet, but I do want to test. Reed, like I said, just more of a more of that shield breaking type unit, but I just don't see the need. Like, I don't see the world in which I'm building him, because the only time I'm doing fire is if I got Cyrus, and I just don't see me ever getting to that point. And then we always got our 2 free-to-play option tanks as well. But in general, like I said, in the current state, I do think that the Wind and the Physical team are the current best teams. Behind that, I do like the Corrosion team a lot. I think Explosion has a lot to happen with Lydia as a free-to-play option. The Freeze team is really solid as well. There's just a lot of incredibly solid teams. The Electro team as well, because Sam Becker's a thing and we all get free copies. I think it's pretty fantastic, but I think the game is in a pretty nice balanced state. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing maybe some guild bosses introduced into global and stuff like that, so we can start testing, you know, with more fundamentals, because at the moment it's kind of like, yeah, I can clear it with wind, I can clear it with physical, you can probably clear it with fire, you can clear it with just about anything you're using. So once we get into that more deep challenge stage, we do have a lot of time gating on things, then we will find out exactly where the teams are at on the global stance for it, but that is where it is currently at. Let me know any thoughts you guys have on the tier list, and as always, thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing the next one. Cheers.